Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the January Coach webinar. My name is Sue Rose, and I'm going to facilitate our time together this morning. So I'm going to introduce who's in the room with me today and talk about what we're going to cover. So I'm Sue Rose, and I am a pre-K specialist with the Department of Early Learning, and Kelly DeBoer is sitting right here.
Good morning, this is Kelly, and I'm also a pre-K specialist with the Department of Early Learning.
So Kelly and I are going to work through the PowerPoint today, and we're really excited about doing this. Today we're going to start off with an exciting WELS update with Jonathan Green. Then we have Brittany Lee, who's joined us from the Haring Center to talk about internship opportunities. And then we have at least one coach today that's going to be talking about her experience during the internship at the Haring Center. We'll get a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about class and ERS tips from the field and let you know when our next webinar is. I also want to point out that attached to this webinar on your dashboard, which is what I call the little thing in the upper right-hand corner, where you can raise your hand and those kinds of things, there are two handouts attached. One of them is the tidbit calendar for January and February. And so if I go to handouts over here, and I click on tidbit calendar, it looks like this, and it has different items. This came out of work that Molly does with her sites, and these are just little tidbits to help support class and Ecker's work with teachers. So if you find this useful, let us know, and feel free to use it. And so that is a handout, and we will post the handouts from our webinar to the DEL website when we're done. Close this. Okay. And then we also have, so Brittany's going to be talking about the Haring Center internship. So there's also a handout there that lists the different dates and additional information in case you want to take a look at that. Okay. So Jonathan Green, thanks for joining us today. So what are some things that you want to talk about?
Well, good morning. This is Jonathan Green. I'm the QRIS Technical Services Manager with DEL. I worked for many years with the ECAP program, so I'm familiar with many of you and your programs. I'm just going to give some very brief updates on the WELS system. I'll let you know about some things that we have in the works. And if you have any questions right now, I believe we have some time to respond to those. You have to give me easy ones, though, not hard ones. And if you do have questions after the webinar or in the future, please do contact me at the qris@del.wa.gov email address. That's for more technical issues related to your merit and or WELS access. If you really have policy questions related to coaching, things like that, please contact the ECAP folks. I believe you're supposed to contact your ECAP specialist.
Yeah.
I will be happy to help you out with more technical things, as I said.
Great. And actually, hey, Jonathan,
yes.
This is Sue Rose. You said that they can email you about merit access too. Is that right?
If it's related to their WELS access, because people have to go into merit to get to WELS, so people are having some technical problems there. And if it's something we can't help you out with, we can certainly forward it on to the merit. If it's just more general merit issues or related to your actual account in merit and your education, things like that, do contact the merit email address directly.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, and Kelly?
We have a question from Joan. She's asking if the site has a CCA and ECAP coaches, can the ECAP coach have that site listed as theirs? If not, who enters data into WELS?
Yes, and there are several people who do have CCA coaches. One of the things I've discovered is that in WELS there are the different ECAP contractors set up as what are called agencies, and underneath each agency there are different staff attached to them. Some of those staff are the grantee contractor role staff, and those are the people who actually have larger access than the coaches and are responsible for assigning coaches to particular sites within their ECAP program. So the coaches who are only ECAP coaches will show up under that agency. Coaches who are already set up in WELS with a child care aware or another agency would not be underneath that agency automatically. However, I have the ability and my colleagues to go in there and we can assign sites if they're not already assigned to a particular coach within that region. It's a pretty straightforward process. And I've done that with, I think, a couple folks already. So if you do have that situation, again, feel free to contact me at the QRIS email inbox and we'll help you out. We've had a few emails from folks, just kind of general things, getting set up with their access both in Merit and in WELS. But my understanding is most people, both the coaches and the grantee contractors, are set up in WELS and should have WELS access. We've had a few technical things where people have emailed me and been able to help them resolve their access, or if they're not able to see a particular site or what have you. So if for some reason you're not set up as an ECAP coach, and you should be, go ahead and, again, and email me at the QRIS inbox. If your grantee contractor person is not set up and they're the person who is responsible for assigning you, go ahead and have them contact me and we can do that as well. So, and then you should all be ready to go. As I said before, if you have ongoing technical issues, do feel free to contact us. We're happy to help you out. But for the more policy kinds of questions, go ahead and contact your ECAP specialist.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
So just a couple of updates on what's happening with the WELS data system. We have a new look to the Notes tab, which has not been deployed yet to production WELS, but will likely be deployed in the very near future. And it will look a little bit different, and how you enter the data in WELS for Notes will be slightly different, but all the same functionality that you currently have will be there. And I'm going to keep that kind of secretive just because I don't want to give you the information on something that's not there yet. So right now, if you are entering Notes into WELS, there's information in the Introduction to WELS webinar that's posted on the website and the PowerPoint that has information on how to do that. Again, if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact me if you don't get your answers in the PowerPoint or the webinar. When this new Notes look and functionality is deployed to WELS, to the production site, I will go ahead and send out an email to the coaches and let them know about this, and I will update the WELS PowerPoint and webinar so that you can access that. I haven't done that yet because it hasn't deployed. I don't want to confuse people by having two different looks in different places. And again, it's not going to be rocket science, so to speak. It'll be pretty straightforward. I think once you look at it, you'll be able to see exactly what you need to do, just a little bit different process of how you enter that. So that's one thing that will be probably happening very soon here. The second thing is we are working with the staff at WELS and at the University of Washington on having a data feed from WELS to the Coaching Companion.
Ooh.
And we're just at the very beginning stages of that, so don't get too excited just yet and go look for it.
Sorry, I kind of got excited there.
We can get excited, but it will take some time. As you know, everything, when you're changing software systems, especially connecting different databases to talk to each other, takes a bit of time. But we are working with the folks, as I said, at both WELS and the UW on having a data feed from the Quality Improvement Plan tab into Coaching Companion so you can connect those two resources that you have. I know that people have access to it. I'm not sure how many people are actually using the Coaching Companion at this point in time. But again, I will send out an email to folks once that is in place with some guidance and instructions about what that is and how you can use that. So hopefully that will be coming in the not too distant future as an enhancement to WELS and the Coaching Companion.
Well, maybe we'll invite you back, and you can tell us about that one.
Maybe I'll come back and talk about it.
I would kind of like, I think we would all really appreciate that. That's very exciting. And I'm trying not to get too excited about it, but it's cool to hear about things that are on the horizon. So is there anything else? Because I know that I think at least one question has come in if you have time.
That's pretty much it for the WELS updates. So I'm happy to respond to any questions that you have now or ones that you have offline later.
Okay, great. And I just wanted to say, this is Sue Rose, that today Kelly and I are going to be working to try and answer your questions throughout the webinar today, if we can get to your questions. We will really try hard to do that. And if we're not able to, then we'll try and we'll work to answer questions offline and get you the answer. The other thing that we're going to do today is we're going to be launching some polls, P-O-L-L-S, not yes. So I want you to know that this is also pretty cool because I've never actually launched a poll in a webinar, so you guys are going to help me experience something new today, so I hope you don't mind. So let's go ahead and see what Kelly found in the question box.
Let's see. So we have a question from Molly, and she's asking, should we be entering notes in Wells now, and when are we required as coaches to start inputting into Wells?
There is information in the webinar for Wells, and in the PowerPoint. I actually have a copy here. I'm going to look at it. Just see if I have a response to that particular question. And I'll let the ECAP folks jump in as well. I think my understanding is basically once you've started providing coaching services to a site, that's when you would want to start entering notes into Wells. And we do want people to enter them as soon as possible so that you're capturing the correct information in terms of the date and the time and the narrative that you're entering.
Yeah. And that's good, Jonathan. And I'm not sure if Karen Gams is on the line or not, and if she wanted to pipe in or not, because I want to make sure that this is answered for Molly, because I'm certain that everyone else has the same question. So.
There is a requirement, I know, to enter your notes within 5 calendar days of your visit. So depending on when you actually start doing your visits and actually start collecting information that you need to enter, there is that requirement as far as the actual data entry into Wells.
Exactly. And I think the reason I'm kind of slowing down on this one before I answer is because I know that we're going to have, there's a difference between pre-rating and then post-rating. So you can't create your quality improvement plan until you have your rating level data yet.
Correct.
So I think that I'm not exactly sure what what we're requiring of coaches this very instant, but I would say also it's a good time to start practicing your entering notes and after you've visited with a site, and then we'll make sure to get the final answer on that. That's a great question, Molly. Thank you. So if there's nothing else for Jonathan.
No other questions at this time.
Okay.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So now what we're going to do is poll time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll. And our first poll, since we have Brittany joining us from the Haring Center, we wanted to ask you about how much training you already have on working with children with differing behaviors. And so right now we have people responding, so you should see a poll on your screen, and you guys are doing it. Thank you so much. This is so exciting. So we're gonna wait to allow everybody to answer, and I'm really excited to see what's coming up. So as a viewer, I'm not sure what you can see, but we will share our data. Okay, good. I'm seeing now. My colleagues are showing me what you guys are seeing. Okay, so we have 38% of coaches have a lot of training on working with children with differing behaviors, and then 55% have some training, and then there's there's some that have not been trained but are wanting training, and then some that just aren't exactly sure what. So thank you so much for participating in that poll. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get Brittany unmuted, and Brittany Lee is the Director of Early Learning and Professional Development. She's the Director of the Early Learning and Professional Development Unit at the Haring Center. So I'm probably slaughtering your job title, Brittany. But let's make sure that you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey.
And then I am giving you the mouse and keyboard. Your mouse always takes priority, so stop moving it when you want other people to use it. Oh, okay. Okay, so, okay, Brittany, you should have power of the, no, hang on one second. I'm going to make you the presenter, and now I can see your screen.
Okay. How does that look? Is it full screen?
It's full screen, but it's the poll.
Oh, okay.
So hang on one second. So yeah, so hang on one second, Brittany and everybody else. Thanks for your patience. 1 second. So everybody, thanks for bearing with me. So I'm so excited to do these polls, and I'm trying to close it out so that I can give Brittany the access. And I wonder if I hit escape.
That's her screen.
That's Brittany's screen. Okay, you need to close your poll. Oh, someone told us that. Okay. Okay, Brittany, try now.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I see your screen.
Perfect. Great. It's actually quite impressive. I feel like technology is so complicated but so helpful at the same time.
Okay, and so thank you, Brittany, for your patience, and audience members, really appreciate your patience. So, Brittany, take it away. Tell us about the Haring Center internship.
Great, thank you. So we are a part of the University of Washington. We're called the Haring Center, and we partner with Sequel, which is the organization that many of you are already familiar with, who provide the two-day coach training, a lot of the webinars, but we partner on webinars. They produce the Coach Companion, they put on the Institute, so they're doing the primary professional development for coaches and providers through the Department of Early Learning. And then the Haring Center came on about a year ago, actually, due to feedback from coaches specifically, and at that time there were a lot of CCA coaches, but also ECAP coaches, looking for more information about basically the roof. So not just children with challenging behavior, but looking at individualization in general. A lot of the ratings, there's a lot of points that, that are attributed towards individualization, but some coaches identified that that was a tricky thing for teachers to do. And then in addition to just individualizing for all students, paying particular attention to children who have a difficult time participating, whether that is simply because of non-engagement, maybe a cognitive delay. Definitely one of the things that comes up the most is some challenging behavior, which could, again, just be refusal to participate, all the way up to some pretty pretty aggressive behaviors that can happen. So we came on in collaboration with Sequel because our center, the Haring Center, has 3 units, and one is the Experimental Education Unit, the EEU, which many people are very familiar with. It's a school that serves 250 children from birth through kindergarten, and 50% of our children are identified of having a delay or disability, and all of our classrooms are inclusive. And in the recent years, the ratios of the children within the classroom represent more of what you'd see in the community. For example, in our preschool, we have 10 children who enter the year without a developmental or not being identified with a delay or disability. Half of those children qualify for ECAP, and then we have 6 children who come in already identified. So a group of 16 total, but coming from very different qualifying areas, some through special ed, some through ECAP, and some just through what we call community preschool. So what we put together with Sequel is a series of training packages that is kind of a tiered approach to support primarily for coaches. We do participate in internships, and at one level we do get involved with either a director or provider if necessary, but our primary role is to build the capacity of coaches, because coaches are the really key to making that change within classrooms and for individual children, because you have the relationship, you spend the time, you understand the context. So we're putting most of our effort into really building up what coaches are able to do and pass on. So one of the main things that we bring on is moving from your own personal knowledge of how to work with individualized children that need individualization to how do I apply this to coaching strategies? How do I actually write goals around modification and accommodation? How do we measure them? How do we make this a priority for providers? How do we help them understand that this is incremental in steps? There's not a sort of magic bullet to challenging behavior. It's a long process that takes a lot of commitment and work. So we're working on that end with coaches that can then turn around and work with all of the providers. So the goal of these, what we call enhanced professional development, since professional development has been going on for years, and some of it had to do, also involved work on individualization, but we've really beefed it up over the last year with the Haring Center coming on, are to support successful inclusion. We want to have the best possible outcomes for every child, and again, we want to support the coaches to build their own skills and capacity, but then also that of the providers. The content of what we call our internship, it is a 2-day workshop, and we called it an internship because for those of you who've gone through it is much more involved than a training or a workshop. It is at least 50% the responsibility of the coaches to come with their own knowledge and expertise and ability to figure out how to take what they're learning here and put it into their own practice. It definitely is moving away from one of those information delivery type of workshops where we have the answers and you're going to listen and role play. So we are really asking coaches to bring in their vast experience, not only with individualization, but also of the children with whom they're working and the providers and the context, so we can figure out how to make it applicable to everyone. A lot of us know that a lot of content, but it's really hard to then make change within the settings. So we focus on these 5 core areas for individualization. We start with looking at inclusion overall, and key topics within that are looking at participation, attitudes and beliefs, how children interact with one another, not just how adults interact, but how children interact with one another when there are children with some significant challenging behavior in the classroom or some very clear learning differences. And we focus on how to first create a very inclusive, nurturing classroom community where everyone is there to get what they need. And then we move on to actual instructional practices, and we spend a lot of time talking about modifications and adaptations, and we spend a lot of time. This is sort of like the key for providers to helping children participate and be able to stay in their childcare or ECAP settings. And then we move on to actually teaching replacement skills, identifying, we figure out how to identify function of behavior, looking at teaching those competing behaviors. So if a child is doing a lot of throwing toys while they're supposed to be cleaning up, what would be a competing behavior that we would teach? So then there's not throwing toys. So we're focusing less on the thing we want the kid to stop doing and more on what we want them to start doing. And then we look at, move on to, well, sort of embedded throughout, but positive behavior support. So prevention, prevention, prevention. What can we do to prevent this behavior? Is there anything we can do, even if it's something completely different than what the other kids in the class are doing? Can we keep the behavior from, stop the behavior from happening? And then the last section that we focus on is supporting and including families. So supporting and including families within this process, and we also look a little bit at conversations around referral when necessary, and what is the evidence around a family's position and where they're coming from. What does research say about families when they are first learning about possibly an identified need for special education services, and what are some communication strategies that we can use to meet a family where they are. So that's overall the content of the internship. The activities that go on within the internship are some information delivery, so there's a little bit of discussion back and forth, some presentation, and then we spend a lot of time actually going through the classrooms that are here at the EEU. They all have that sort of glass that you can see in, but the kids can't see out. And we have some very targeted and focused observations that you would be able to make and see some of these instructional practices happening, see this type of inclusive environment that we're talking about. It's very difficult to explain what you mean by a supportive, inclusive environment without seeing it. And when you see it, you identify it immediately as it being the children being positive towards one another, they all helping each other, the adults, like everyone's on the same team. So we use these sort of targeted observations and spend a lot of time through the observations for coaches to actually see the practices. And then one of them really about what we've received from the feedback of the almost 60 coaches who have come through is the ability for coaches to communicate with each other, to just providing the time for coaches to not only watch some of these practices take place, but then also discuss with each other and share resources and share ideas and come together to really develop plans. I think it's also very helpful that we are an actual classroom and training site, so everything you see is not perfect. So it also gives you coaches the ability to say, oh yeah, I see something similar like that happened in a site where I work, and here's some ways we can get around it, or here's some solutions that we have, and you can see some great examples of things to do, but then also some discussion points of things that that could be improved through our windows as well. We move on from the internship. We think of the internships as sort of that base layer. Without the internship, it's very difficult to provide the consultation around a specific child, because there's a lot of context, a lot of sort of vocabulary and language and ideas that are being brought together through those 2 days. And without that shared experience with us as the consultants and you as the coach, it's very difficult to provide the consultation in a very efficient way, because it's often over phone, over the web, over email. It's all of us can't move around the state as freely as we'd like. So we need to start with this shared experience through the internship to really make the most out of that consultation. So the internship and the webinars that we participate in and the products that I'll touch on a little bit later are really the foundation and the core. And once we start there, we can move up to provide more intensive support through ongoing coach development. So after the internship, we plan for a minimum of 2 consultation calls with you, and if you're working with your director, ECAP's a little bit different than CCA because it's not as streamlined in terms of who you actually work for. So if it's with a director or with an ed specialist or with your your primary contractor. So for example, at the EEU, we subcontract through the City of Seattle, so when our coaches are on a call, someone from the City of Seattle is also on a call. So we work that out at the beginning of who should be here. We want to make sure everyone who would be a part of making a change in a classroom would be involved, so there's not mixed messages. And that happens through the ongoing coach development. A minimum of at least 2 phone calls or contacts will initiate. You don't have to think about it after the internship, and then ongoing provider consultation or coach consultation is needed. So while the support after the internship is more intensive, we don't just drop off. We are here for the long haul, and our consultation sort of caseload just keeps growing, and as it grows, we'll just add more consultants. So we can't get exhausted with it, with helping enough. And our primary focus of that provider consultation is getting to children, whether it's a large group of children in a classroom that is going to really greatly impact 1 or 2 kids, or that 1 or 2 kid that the provider or teacher just can't get a handle on. We want to get to them as early as possible and provide them as much support as possible to prevent maybe the need for referral or the need of recommendation for or an alternate placement that could better meet their needs. I know there's no expulsion in ECAP, but we do know that sometimes children need to leave to be able to better meet their needs, and part of our goal and mission is to keep them where they are, in their communities, with their friends, with their neighbors, with the teachers and caregivers that they have known and have grown to trust. So here you can see up in the left-hand corner where you just have that triangle again, and a little bit more information about the internship. What we really hope for is that when people come to the internship, if you have a coaching partner, so if you are working with another coach, then it's ideal if you come with that coach. It's also helpful if you are sort of a one-man band and are doing it alone, maybe if you come with someone within your region, and we can help match people together as well based on geographical location. And the reason for that is when people are coming from the same region, it's often you can have better discussions about some of the maybe cultural and linguistic needs of that area happening, and you can possibly have a similar context for some of the things you're working with, and also that sets you up for being a resource for each other in the future. So maybe you come and you haven't met a coach before, but you know they're in a neighboring, only an hour away, and you spend a couple days together, which doesn't seem like long, but it does kind of feel like that sometimes, and well spent time. When you leave here, you have made a sort of, a colleague that can also be a resource for you. Again, we use various strategies. There's videos, role play, guided note-taking, group sessions, breakout sessions, observations. It's not just sitting and listening. Then we also provide our focus is on coaches, so everything sort of has a spin on, yes, you may learn some content, but for that, 30% of people who said they've had a lot of training on individualization, we would even shift the focus more greatly to how are you using this in practice? How are we changing teacher behavior? How are we creating more inclusive communities? And really looking at those coaching strategies and giving you, maybe just adding to your toolbox of supports that you can use with coaches, and possibly help you streamline all of the bits and pieces that you already have. Through webinars, we often provide a case study. So, for example, after I'm done talking, I believe one of the coaches will share their experience with the internship. So we often do the same thing on a webinar. So if the topic is positive behavior support, we would also have a coach come on, or a provider, and share their experience in with our collaboration and consultation. What was the problem? What was the sort of impetus for asking for our help? Like, at what point did they decide to ask for our help? How did that go? What was it like? And then we have a variety of products. And the products are still, you know, coming. They're still coming. We're working on it all the time. We are making what we call suites for providers and for coaches. So that would come with some sort of material that would be information delivery, whether it's a PowerPoint or a handout or some sort of paper, some guided activities to help dive into the information, and then tips for teachers and coaches, as well as videos and things like that to help really solidify some of the specific instructional strategies that we talk about. The ongoing coach development, that second tier, like I said, often happens through email, phone, online technology. We've done some really cool things, and a lot of this depends on directors and consent and what you have information for, but we've actually done some really interesting things where we've been on FaceTime on like a iPad or iPhone, so you're not videotaping, so there's not like a record of the interaction, but on FaceTime to show a specific challenging behavior and the setting events and possibly what the antecedents were, what happened before the challenging behavior. So as the consultants, we can actually get our eyes on what's happening in the classroom to provide more support. We're a fresh pair of eyes coming with a different lens and different set of expertise. So we've used some of these online platforms. One of the really exciting things that I hope to be able to pilot this year is we did a research study that's actually called a bug in the ear, where you can put a little device in the provider or coach's ear and use FaceTime or some sort of device like that, and the consultant can actually cue the provider or the coach on what to say or what to do. And there was overwhelming evidence on child outcomes based on this strategy. So that was really, really interesting. So I hope that we can have some brave souls that might try that this year. And we also have video sharing. So just simply grabbing a clip of what's happening in the classroom or the child and sending it to us. And we are also on the Coaching Companion, which is still getting up and moving and becoming widely spread, but we can share videos through that or through other online sharing platforms. Then that last step is the provider consultation. So when coaches or providers are needing more support than the sort of base layer of internships, the products we provide, the ongoing coach development, we will come in and do even more intensive consultation. So that would look like possibly doing a functional behavior assessment over the phone using interviews with the coach, the provider, the director, really getting at the root of what is this child communicating, because a lot of times when providers or coaches, when we're kind of deep in it, it is very, and we have a relationship with the child, it's very difficult to see very objectively what the child's communicating. So we can come in and use, everything that we use has a lot of research behind the fidelity of the tools, some really great ways of figuring out, okay, what's really going on here, and now how do we create a plan that works for everyone? And we used to cue people, coaches, to say, you know, don't jump up to this top layer unless it's very pervasive and disruptive, or they're talking about, probably shouldn't say expulsion, it should say possible consultation to a change in placement. But now we are really asking people to say the earlier the better. The second you as a professional have a feeling like, this child is going to take a lot of the teacher's energy. And when a child takes a lot of teacher's energy, it often ends up in some sort of conflict cycle, exhaustion. It's really difficult. So as soon as we see this could be a problem, we want to be able to jump in and help. And it's not help to fix, it's to be that other person to provide more resources. Everyone is taxed in what they can do. The coaches, I know coaches are incredibly taxed in their caseloads and what they're able to do. And when you have one or two very challenging children, you're no longer able to work on all of those very important things around instructional interactions that are measured by the classroom organization, behavior management for the group. Your whole focus turns into how do we work with these two kids, or we can't get anything done because this child is taking up so much of the energy in the classroom. So we'd like to be able to come in before it becomes a dire situation. This last slide is an overview of what you need, the overall resources and materials that we provide you with through the internship and then after the internship. At the internship, you are working from a notebook that we've put together where we give you every piece of information we provide. So every slide, every prompt, discussion prompt, every planning tool, anything that we use, we would like you to have to then be able to use with coaches. We organize it by those 5 sections I introduced at the beginning. We also put we put those same materials on a USB so you can have them electronically, but then we put additional information on the USB as well. So nice articles that are easily accessible to teachers, articles for yourself, different planning tools, examples of visual supports. In addition, it's a huge amount of what we call curated information. So nothing is new. I think a lot of what we do necessarily isn't brand new, but we've looked at all of the sort of key players within our nation, like through Kentucky, through Vanderbilt, through UW, and looking at all of those little bits and pieces that are everywhere and trying to put them together into one spot. We subscribe to, you see in that blue, the bottom left there, we give you a book called Building Blocks for Inclusion, and that is written by the director of our center, Dr. Eileen Schwartz, and Dr. Susan Sandel, who's the director of the Applied Research Unit here, and they very clearly outline a framework looking at modifications, embedded instruction, and then more intensive practices for children. So we give every participant that book that has very specific teaching practices for providers. And then we also have a lending library. So you would be able to look at the lending library, take books from it. We have a great system where it's online where you can look at all of the titles, what they're about by subject, by alphabetical order, and request that we mail it to you, and then we send you a pre-stamped envelope for you to send it back when you're finished with it. We also, if people find that a specific tool is incredibly helpful to them, we have let them keep it and just replaced it in our library as well. So it's a great resource for coaches as well as providers. And I think I am a very fast talker, so that is all of the slides I have. And to sign up for the internships, I believe you sign up through Karen. Is that correct, Nicole?
Well, first of all, Brittany, thank you. This is Sue Rose. Great job. I think that this is so exciting to hear about, and we appreciate you sharing this with us. And for those that are interested in the Haring Center internship, you can go ahead and email the pre-K specialist that's assigned to your contractor, and then we'll help. And there's actually, we want you to send 3 different dates that you're available for those internships. And again, the handout is in this webinar, and so it's over on your little dashboard, and I'll open it right now. And then Brittany, if you don't mind being with us for a moment, I think that we have a question, and but first I want to just pull up the one-pager that we have on the internships. It should be, oh, and actually, Brittany, hang on, you got to give me back control of the screen.
Okay, so I can change presenter and go to
the there's like, we've got like 5 DEL presenters on there. So pick one of them and then let's see if it works.
Okay.
Oh, I think.
Okay.
Is that my screen?
You, it's me.
Okay. Then can you give it to me?
How do I do it?
Okay, so hang on one second, guys. And actually, Brittany, while we're figuring this piece out, can you remind us where the Haring Center internships are actually, where do they take place? Where is this?
Thank you. Yes, the Haring Center is at the University of Washington. We are located behind the hospital, so right off of Pacific. I don't want to misspeak because it's sort of a newer to bring on ECAP coaches, but I know in the past we have helped arrange and reimburse travel and lodging depending on how far away you come, so I'm pretty sure that's still the case. So we are very close to U Village in that area in Montlake Cut, and it's at the actual school, like I said. So most of the Haring Center is the experimental education unit. It very much looks like a school with other offices hid away where other groups of adults work, but primarily when you come into the building you see and feel a school.
Brittany, thank you so much. And so we're still working to get the controls back with me, so hang on one second. Everybody should see my screen now. Okay, so what I wanted to show you really quick, and Brittany, thank you for telling us a little bit more about that. And I'm pulling up the handout that's attached. And let me get this up on the screen. And it looks like this. So it gives you a little bit more concrete information that Brittany just talked about. And then down here, it lists the dates that the internships are available. We went ahead and crossed out the dates that are already full. So again, it's important to give us about 3 different options that you're interested in so that we can work to get you scheduled. So let me get the PowerPoint back up. And I think that we've had some questions come in. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes. Joan is asking if it's ever possible for a teacher to do the internship, or if teachers are able to visit the Haring Center to observe a class.
Ooh.
A great question. So teachers, anyone, we have sort of an open door visit policy at the Haring Center. What we are designed to do is share our practices. So all we ask is that you, a teacher would call and set up the observation, mostly so we don't have a group of 50 people here when we're trying to have a teacher have a good experience as well. So we'll have people call the front desk, and the number, if you want to write it down, is 206-543-4011, and I can follow up an email. So anyone is welcome to visit at any time, and when you call, they will give you the schedules, times of whatever program you're interested in. And if you're ECAP, it's most likely the preschool program. So at this time, the internship is exclusively for coaches. And part of that is because the information and the way that it's delivered makes a lot of assumptions about prior knowledge and background information, and the pace at which it goes is very fast. When we initially designed this internship and we thought about, possibly providers or coaches, for a provider this would last more like 4 days. The pace at which it goes is so fast and through that 2 days. However, we, through the Haring Center, there is a team of 4 presenters at this time. We participate in all of the Early Achievers Institutes that are specifically designed for providers, and you can look for us. It always identifies us through the Haring Center, and we present on pieces of the internship but geared more towards a teacher instead of a coach at all of the institutes. And I know for this year the institutes are finished and they won't be coming up until this summer, but that's where we are. If there does seem to be a great need for an an internship that is geared more towards the teacher, that would be really great information to know, and that you can let us know through your pre-K specialist, through us directly. When you come to the internship, we give you and give you much time and really hope and encourage you to give us as specific feedback as possible on each section. So if there's specific sections would be very helpful for a teacher or provider to say that this would be great if this were available, and those are things that we can have, you know, ongoing conversations with UW and with Dell about. You know, we're only in our second year of collaboration, and we're always looking to better serve. So that's where we are now.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. And Kelly has one more question.
So Candace is asking, what is the possibility of accessing the materials and resources outside the internship?
Oh, that's a great question. At this time, there's not. We do provide, like I said, we're developing products that are aligned with some of the internship materials, and they are on schedule to be completed by the end of this contract year, so within a year. It actually takes quite a lot, mostly to get consent for people to videotape and to actually have examples. But we are also just in the works working on rewiring our building to have a live feed, because one of the critical components of that internship is seeing it in practice. And we're hearing that still from coaches who have been here, that they need videos, they need to be able to show the providers what they saw. So we have it approved to rewire some of the classrooms with high-speed internet and new microphones, so you could drop in and do a live feed, and that could give us the potential to go regionally and more local. But again, this is all more theoretical and a hope and a dream that we could do that in the future. So at this time, and for the next contract year, so until likely December of 2016, the only way to access it is through coming here.
Hey, Brittany, this is Karen Gans from Department of Early Learning. I arrived a little bit late today because I had a previous commitment. And I just wanted to tag on to the end of what you just said, and that is that in just a minute we're going to be hearing from one of the coaches who actually attended the internship, and really what we've heard is being able to have that experience with other coaches and then being able to create a little bit of a community around coaching was really beneficial. And so we really want to support coaches having that experience in person. And one of the things that I just want to add, in case you didn't share it, is that the costs for travel are covered for coaches to come and attend this internship. Correct, Brittany?
Yes, I thought so too, but now that you're saying it, then we both agree. I did say it earlier, and I said, I hope I'm not misspeaking, but yes, the cost of travel has been covered, and whether it's through airfare, hotels, reimbursement of mileage, etc. Yep. And Karen, I agree, and I did mention that a little bit earlier, and you cannot, I don't think you can emphasize it enough that in some ways it's a gift of time, which we don't have. When you don't have. And so when you're really here for 2 days, and if you're coming from out of town and you are building this team and you're staying in a hotel and it's only 48 hours, but you really do have the gift of time to just focus on this content. And I think that's invaluable as well.
Yeah, and it's clear from the coaches who have attended that that's not something that could be duplicated if they weren't there in person. So. Any other Haring Center questions, Kelly?
No, looks like we're good.
Okay, great. So Brittany, I think that you're more than welcome to continue on to listen in. I'm sure you might be curious what the coach says about her experience at the Haring Center. So, Brittany, feel free to stay on with us and until the end, or you can feel free to go ahead and exit the webinar. We really appreciate your time and this great information.
Thank you so much, and I probably will stick around, but if I have to jump off, know that it's because EE was actually getting rated today. The raters showed up this morning, so if I jump off, it's only to help in that effort.
Well, that is, okay, well, we have Manette Mason in the room, and she's, so this is exciting. Okay, all right, well.
I'm just going to say, way to model keeping it cool when the raters show up, Brittany.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and, yep, Brittany, we will be muting you, so just raise your hand if you'd like us to unmute you.
Okay, thank you.
And then, okay, so I just wanted to quickly, I know that we're kind of running close we've only got like 33 minutes left, but a couple questions came in the queue that I just wanted to address real quick about just going back to that difference between the pre-rating and post-rating entries into WELS. This seems to be a reoccurring question that coaches are really wanting a little bit more support and information on. We talked about it on the December webinar, and that is posted on the DEL website, and I'll be taking you guys there a little bit further in our webinar. But also that the question came up from Molly as well about what kind of information should we be entering into WELS if we don't have our rating data yet. So I just, you know, Karen Gans is in the room, and so the answer to that is that please do pre-rating notes. Get into WELS, go ahead and start logging your notes. And then it's after your rating is finalized for the site that your quality improvement plan needs to be written, and then you do your action plan after that. So one of the things we're thinking about is, you know, making sure that as more and more sites are going through data collection, however much support that we can offer through these webinars to make sure that you feel really comfortable and confident about the requirements, but also the usefulness of this information that's entered into WELS. So perhaps we will invite Soleil back, or really make sure that that's the topic for our February webinar. And then also, Chrissy had talked about in WELS for a few of her sites, there's rating data captured on ECHRS and CLAS, but the rating itself is not finalized. So she's able to see it in WELS, and she's wondering, should we, you know, can we go ahead and, you know, we can infer that they're probably going to be rated this or that. And our deepest recommendation here is that we don't share any information related to data collection until UW has finalized that rating. Just because it's so easy to have the data not shared in the correct way until UW is done thoroughly looking at it and going through their protocols and procedures around that. So, but you could use the information, and I know it does feel weird, Chrissy, to have that information and then not really be sharing it with teachers, but it's really best practice to not share it just yet. Okay. So then I think we're going to go ahead and, I think it might be poll time. It is. Okay, so we're going to try another poll. We're not going to try, we're going to do it. Now I can't find the poll. Okay, hang on. All right, so you guys, I told you that today's my first poll day. So the first one I think went really well, and it was super cool. What we were going to ask you is we're interested in knowing how many of you are actually in Coaching Companion and if you're uploading videos and that kind of stuff. So imagine that I sent that question out and that you're answering it. Oh, and actually, hang on one second. We're going to launch the poll. I got some help from Manette, and we're launching. So if you can, please let us know whether you're using Coaching Companion, not yet, or if you've at least logged on, kind of taking a look. Give a couple more seconds here. Okay. Okay, great. So we are, okay, looks like we've got about everybody in. And it looks like not many are using Coaching Companion yet. We've got about 8% of coaches that are in Coaching Companion and using it. And but 37% of you have said, yeah, I've at least logged on. I'm not doing much else. So it's as we work to support you in this coaching work, let us know if there's anything more we can do to help support your comfort level, or whatever we can do to support you in using Coaching Companion. It's not required, but we are going to have that link between Wells and the Coaching Companion, so we can offer additional support. So let me close this poll. Thank you for helping me, you guys. That was awesome. And I'm going to move this. Okay, now we have Kristen Monson, who's going to be talking with us about her experience and Becky Zaleski's experience, who can't join us but was also a part of the internship. And so let me unmute. Kristen's unmuted? Mm-hmm. Kristen, can you say something to us? Oh, I can barely hear you. How about now? Okay. So, Kristen, we unmuted you. Did you unmute yourself? Let me see if, hang tight 1 second. Okay, let's give Kristen just a second to get started. And what I'm going to do as we're moving through that, Kristen, go ahead, and I've got Kelly here who's working on this. But what I'd like to do is move forward in some slides as we kind of running down to 25 minutes. Okay, and we have a question we can answer in the meantime too.
So Karen Weekly is asking, one of her sites received a rating last spring, but now there is all new staff and a new portable used for the classroom. The previous data is pretty much not helpful. Any suggestions?
Yeah, well, that does happen, and that is not, that makes it really a little bit more tricky, and you're right, that is historical data that's no longer helpful. And so thoughts from me, and then maybe other coaches can also type in ideas, and is that doing more of the going through the classroom with the Eckers and getting some do the self-reflection on the class and the Eckers tool with the teachers, I think is a great starting point. Also doing your own baseline Eckers and class to kind of get a sense. And when we're doing those Eckers and class observations. It's really important not to actually give them a score, but just areas of feedback, and then take it from there. But it does happen, and it makes it a little bit more challenging, but definitely still doable. So how are we doing with getting Kristen? Oh, yeah.
And so I would just add, you know, any coaches that have any other ideas of, I know there are lots of coaches out there who have dealt with this situation and how you've managed that. Pretty much what we've heard is that coaches in those situations have completed their own observations, and then they've provided feedback and support and set goals with teachers based on what they are seeing currently in the classroom. But if there are other ideas beyond that, please type in and share and let us know, and we'll go ahead and share that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. It looks like Kristen might be muted by herself. Like, we've unmuted you, Kristen, so
We do have one more question.
and we have one more question. What is it?
Susan is asking.
Oh, wait, we got Kristen. I'm hoping
Yay!
that. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, how are you?
Glad that we got your voice on here. This is so exciting. So,
Sorry about that.
Totally fine. Today's a day for experimenting with technology. So, okay, so Kristen, you went ahead and you did the Haring Center internship. When did you do that?
We did it last year around this time, I think, and we found it so incredibly helpful. And I just wanted to tell Brittany thank you so much for everything that they're doing for coaches. I found that tiered professional development piece where they have the training in a really small group and then you have a chance to observe and then they're given the tools is so much more powerful than somebody just handing you a bunch of tools or just taking you into a classroom. Like, the whole process really did help me as a coach to be able to articulate exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about individualization, because that actually is a really difficult thing to coach to. Even if I've taught that way, it's hard to help teachers really understand that. So it was really helpful.
That's great. And you went with another coach.
Yeah, I went with Becky. We worked together as a team, and then we had one other coach there with us in a really small group. So in that small group training part, we were able to share where we were coming from and real examples of what we were dealing with. And Becky and I had plenty of time to be able to take what we learned there and problem solve from what we had talked about in that small group training. Specifically, the pieces that we used for our coaching, we really appreciated the building blocks tool that they gave us and just how they trained to it and gave us a context, because Brittany did talk a little bit about how they spent a lot of time talking about curriculum modifications and adaptions. And when we're working with teachers, we're using kind of their phrasing where they talked about making a small change in what you're already doing so that it has a big impact with children. So as we're implementing like creative curriculum with our whole class, what small modification or change can you make to reach another group of children that may need just a little bit of a tweaking to make it meaningful to them? So just having the context of that building blocks model helps us to really articulate with teachers what we're doing and helps them to have a context for when they're thinking about meeting kids' needs. And then we also appreciated the matrix because it's really easy once you get to the point where you're really individualizing for kids. It may be really easy to do it by yourself, but you need to articulate with your team and have a way of knowing as a team how you're individualizing for that child. So seeing how to use the matrix and then seeing teachers use it in their classroom was super powerful. And then the last piece that we really liked was the Cepho toolkit, which I actually used in my own classroom, but having experiences that we could share with our teachers that we saw in actual classrooms there helped us to help teachers implement it into their classrooms. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I think that you make me want to go to this internship even more. So, like, oh my gosh, we want to go so bad.
Yeah, that whole part of having all of those pieces where you can talk with your peers, where you can see it, and then we do have the tools, like we have the building blocks book here, we have the PowerPoints that they used here, so we can continuously go back to those things. It was so powerful.
That's awesome, Kristen. This is Karen, and I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. And I have a question. I'm wondering, what would you say were some of the things that you gained in the internship that helped you with your rating readiness in the classrooms and the support that you're providing? Because I think sometimes we can talk about an experience or an opportunity like this, and it can seem like it's something that's on a different topic than what a lot of coaches are focused on right now, which is rating readiness. But if you could sort of make some links to what you learned in this internship and how it is preparing classrooms for rating readiness, I would really appreciate it.
I would say class looks at behavior management a lot, and a lot of times that's an area that's hard to help teachers with in a way that's tangible right away. So that CEFL toolkit has been helpful in helping us articulate with teachers and give them an actual tool to help with that behavior management piece with kids so that they are able to solve problems and talk those problems through. I don't know how many people have seen that toolkit, but I would say that portion has been really applicable to our actual rating.
That's great. I really appreciate that. And actually, I think that Sue is going to go to the CEFL website right now.
Oh, okay.
And see if we can't just sort of bring that information up.
Can you give me the letters?
Can you give her the letters for it?
See, I always put CSFEL, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
They're right there?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Yep, there's the, yeah.
Okay.
We also have been using that toolkit as a way of helping with instructional support because you're also looking at problem solving outside of the context of like the academic piece, but really looking at how are they able to solve a problem with their peers. So it really does speak to the class tool.
Is this the toolkit that
it's on here? Yeah. If you go to, it's hard when I think it's under preschool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you, oh no, that's not.
Well,
but the great thing is that all
training
the other
modules
people who are online while we figure this out can see all of the different resources that are available on the Center, on the Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning. They have, I used this information a lot when I worked in a ECAP program, and they have modules that you can, that have all kinds of information. They have the Book Nook where they look at books and they bring out social and emotional connections to commonly read books that are in preschool classrooms. They have great resources on information to share with parents. It really is, there's just so much information that's there. Plus they have, this site also has the social stories, right, Kristen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. The social stories, and then the feelings, cue cards, and the like taking a turn, the little interaction cards as well.
And that's all free, and it's super easy, but I also appreciated how they were able to articulate the context for which they're using these cards, so we don't just hand them the tools and say, go use these, try to fix the problem, like it's some sort of magic bullet like they were talking about. We really had a chance to sit and talk about the context of them so that we could articulate that well with teachers. So we've seen a lot more buy-in that way.
That's great.
That's great.
Good. So
I think it's under, it might be under for trainers and coaches.
mm-hmm.
Well, that's where I
do
just went.
I can email it to you. We have it.
Yeah, that would be great. If you just
Why don't I
email
just do that? It'll save you guys some
specifically
time.
where the toolkit is on the website, since, you know, it's a technology challenge day, and I know I've pulled the toolkit up in the past, but I haven't done it in a while, so I just can't remember right now. So that would be great.
No problem.
Thanks.
So, Kristen, thank you for taking time out today to talk with us, and thank you. And let's just see, I'm not sure if any additional questions came in. I can actually check them from here, maybe.
Okay. So it looks like Susan Patterson had a question.
Oh, hi, Susan. Can you provide the login information for Coaching Companion again? Yes. We will type that into the question box when Kelly just stepped out. And if we can't get it on this webinar, Susan, we'll just email it out to everybody, the login for, and actually, you have to email the, we'll email you the, we'll email everyone the person that you have to contact at SQL, at the UW, and then they'll get you set up so that you can have your login and stuff.
Yeah, and that information also is on the December coach webinar as well.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Oh, that's nice. Kristen, thanks for trying to help us figure that out. So, all right, and I am not sure that there's any more that are related to what was just talked about. So Kristen, we're going to go ahead and mute you back up. And Chrissy, it looks like you were asking about, so basically, does that mean that the QIP would be based on the updated observations or the old ratings data? Oh, I see. That's for
if you have
old historical data. Yeah. I guess with the QIP would have to be updated based on your current assessment of the site.
Yeah, what's most important is not necessarily to be tied to that old rating that's no longer relevant, but to make sure that you're putting in information that's relevant to the current classroom makeup.
Yes. Good. Thank you. Okay, so we've got about 11 minutes left. Perfect. So we just wanted to share what coaches are finding helpful around class. And we've had at least one person say that using the video library is helpful when talking to teaching staff to show how the scoring works and how each domain affects the overall score in class. So I think that I totally have to agree with this part, that the more teachers understand about the tools that are being used and the more comfortable they feel, I find that really helpful. And then using handouts with STEM sentences for open-ended questions is also great. Okay. And then around the environment rating scale. Being transparent on the Eckers ratings, having hands-on support, and capitalize on teachers seeing immediate results is also some feedback from coaches as being helpful. And then utilizing checklists to allow teachers to understand the assessment. Focus on items that teachers have control of, and include teachers in the process, most definitely. Very important. And any self-reflections that they can do are also really helpful. Kelly?
So I just wanted to say, Karen was asking for a reminder as to which video library we were referring to, and that would be the one in the class, the access that comes with the class subscription to the video library.
Very good, yes. And if you don't have, because I'm not sure if that library is always available to everybody, but also there's a video library, I think, in the Coaching Companion might have access to a library as well. So we're really encouraging the use of the Coaching Companion. Okay.
Because when Soleil shared on the webinar last month, she really talked about how they have examples of best practices that you can show or share with a teacher in a classroom.
Great. So we are going to email out information about logging into Coaching Companion. Oh, look, it's poll time. We've got 9 minutes, and I just wanted to do one more poll, so appreciate you guys bearing with me as I try this new stuff out. So what we really wanted to learn more about, too, is how often you're visiting classrooms. And we know that this is going to look different based on many, a variety of factors. And but we just wanted to see, what's going on out in the field. So kind of let us know. People are taking it. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to give just a couple more seconds. .75% have voted. And with the 75% that have voted, we've got 20% that are going out and visiting classrooms weekly. 22% are going out about every other week. And then about 43% of you are visiting classrooms monthly. And then 14% are doing about every 6 weeks. So, Kelly?
So we have a question.
Well, actually, I think first we want to share that Kristen just commented.
Yes. That it really depends on the level of support that a teacher needs, the amount of time that you spend. So.
Yeah, great point to make. And that's totally some of those varying factors that make a big difference. Okay, moving on. Updates about DEL resources.
I think before we go there is one more question.
There's a question about coaching. Joan is asking if there's a suggestion for the number of classrooms for a full-time coach, given the 4 hours per month of contact suggestion. Like 8 rooms, how many classrooms?
Yeah, and I know that this is something, Joan, that's come up quite frequently, and it's something that there's recommendations, about that, and we did talk about that in December or November again, and there is a recommendation that has come out of UW and Child Care Aware about, what seems reasonable. But, the tricky part is, I think, is that it does come down to also, like, how far are the sites, how experienced are the teachers, and so we can share. Karen, it looks like you might want to say something.
Well, I just want to add that I think that what Soleil shared with all of us was that the information that they've collected is that what they are tracking is the rate of change that occurs depending on how often a coach is supporting a teacher in a classroom. And their information really showed that if you're in a classroom once a week, that that there is noticeable change. The numbers change in the rating scores when you are visiting classrooms one time per week. And then, just like Sue said, it's really important then to be thinking about so if you have a expert level teacher who, when you're looking at either they have their final rating scores from the University of Washington, or based on your observations and your preliminary scores, that you're giving them, not scores, but your preliminary assessment that you're giving them, then in the ERS and class, if you have concerns about a certain area for a teacher, then you would spend obviously more time with that teacher. If it's a teacher who is really at a master level. That's translating into higher scores that are official from the data collectors with the University of Washington or from your feedback with observations, then you would spend less time with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it is individualized. There is no hard number that anyone has been able to develop at this time. I think that more research is being conducted on this so that we hopefully can have numbers in the future of when a coach provides this much support and intervention, these are the potential results or that potential outcomes, and we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And Joan, thank you for that question. So we've got about 3.5 minutes left, and I just wanted to we have, as you probably all know, we have required webinars and informational webinars and coaching resources that are on our DEL website. And so it's under, we're going to make that, we are working to give our DEL website a facelift. So, but hopefully you all know to go over on the side here where it says providers and ECAP contractors. You click on that, and then you do another click, but I just took us right here. So here are the required orientation webinars that make sure that if you are watching these that you're tracking those so that your contractor knows when you took these. And then these monthly webinars are required, and we're so happy that you attended live with us today. But we do record these and we post them here. And then our the WELS user manual and additional handouts will be placed under here, environment rating scale and class supports handouts. We've got a webinar here and here available to support you. And for coaches that support our hybrid participants, we do have a webinar here on the rating readiness tool. So, Kelly, tell us about that survey.
Well, as of today, I believe we had 56 people who have completed the coaching survey, so thank you to all of you who have done that. If you have not yet taken the survey, please take that Survey Monkey. It's an opportunity for you to share your class and ERS tips as well as to provide input to topics for upcoming webinars. I will be resending that link in the next few days to coaches who have not yet taken that. So, thank you.
The other thing that this survey does is it helps us at the Department of Early Learning know what trainings you've already attended and what trainings you have not yet had access to. So it helps us plan with the University of Washington around the types of trainings that we would work with them to provide in the future. So by responding to the survey, we get to know what the sort of the landscape for coaches and training is around the state and where we need to go next.
Great, thanks, Karen. So our next webinar, we're hoping you're going to join us for Thursday, February 4th, 9 to 10:30. So it's the first Thursday of the month. And if you need anything related to coaching, here's our contact information. And we really enjoyed talking with you today. Take good care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.